Hello, everyone. How are you
Hello,
guys
yeah.
doing? A long time no see. Please, a warm welcome to my today's guests, Dawn, of course, Roger, aka Papa Roger, aka Johnny Durango, a longtime old friend of mine, and Trevor Lee. We have on today an advocate for Summer Wells. So, you guys, mixed up stuff we're gonna talk about today. Maybe some other person uh, whose name I don't want to reveal just yet will be joining us in a bit. Hi, KH. So, thank you everyone for joining me tonight. Trevor, is it all right with we start with a little bit of the Idaho murders?
Absolutely.
I can't hear Trevor.
Absolutely.
I I can hear him.
Very sounds very robotic. Roger.
Can you hear me, Trev?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear both of you.
I
Oh,
can hear
okay.
Trev clear. Yeah, got him clear.
Okay, good. So, Roger, what's up with the lawyer
Ooh.
at the moment in the BRYAN KOHBERGER case? Do you
What's up
think
with the
she
lawyer? You know what? I've thought about that one. It's a good question. If that was in South Africa, I think that the lawyer would be stuck with their first client. I'm not sure
Mhm.
about your law. I'm not sure about US law. But as far as I understand, once you've contracted a lawyer, maybe it's different because it's a public defender. And in this case, because that lawyer is a death penalty case lawyer, and maybe she's the only one, or maybe they're a very rare species in that end of the woods. And that's a possibility. But I don't know. It looks a bit unethical to me if she's had consultations with the mother
Yeah.
and the mother's involved in drugs and any drug issues come out about this house, it kind of opens up a can of worms, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I read an article where it said that the lawyer actually ditched the mom.
Yeah, she did. And
She
I
did.
don't understand. She's ditched the mom because she's Brian's attorney now.
Yeah, and
So,
why is she Brian's attorney? I think she gains more popularity about this. What do you guys think?
uh, yes and no, maybe. I think maybe this is a court allocated thing because she's the death penalty attorney. And maybe they can't get another death penalty attorney. So maybe they said to her, you're going to have to recuse yourself from that case and come here. And it didn't matter to them which case it was. Maybe the judge doesn't even know that that case is linked. So it's got to be legal. I mean, otherwise the defense would be in court like tomorrow or Monday morning and saying, hang on, we want this woman thrown off the case.
Hmm.
If
But
they, if
yeah,
they allow it, if you don't hear anything in the next couple of days, then they've accepted it.
yeah, I don't, well, I mean, isn't it, she wants to keep that lawyer, right? If I
That's the
understood
thing.
that
Yeah,
correctly.
she seems a bit upset that the lawyer has gone over to the other side. Look, rightfully so. I'm sure she's pretty fucking pissed off. Right? Like
Yeah.
here's her attorney that she's had a nice chat with and they've had some coffee. And next week she hears from the attorney like, sorry, I've got to drop your case. I'm going to be defending the guy who murdered your daughter. It's a
Yeah.
pretty tough pill to swallow. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the legalities. I just think it's kind of unethical or at least very blurred lines.
I wouldn't want to have him or her. I wouldn't want to have her to defend me if she's switching sides and now defending the murderer of my daughter. I mean,
She cannot defend both cases. Okay, whenever there's a case in a firm of attorneys, and I just know this from experience, is let's say I've got a case against an insurance company and I want to sue an insurance company. I go to the attorney and I say, right, I need to sue XYZ insurance company. They'll then send a memo out or an email to every attorney in that law firm, and they'll ask them, have you guys dealt with this company before? Are we currently dealing with them on any cases? Because we don't want to create a conflict of interest. So is it a conflict of interest? Technically, these two parties, as much as here, I think I've got the answer. As much as we want to think these two cases are linked legally, they're not really. Okay.
No, they're not.
Xana's mother going to jail or getting charged for drug possession or distributing drugs or whatever really doesn't have a whole lot to do with BRYAN KOHBERGER killing her daughter. I know it seems like it does, but it doesn't have. There's no link except that she's her mother, which is kind of irrelevant. So I think she's the lawyers within her legal rights. She's choosing to go that route rather. She's now been called for this big fancy case. It's going to make her name big. Okay, there's no doubt about it. And whether listen, I don't think I'd want that case if I was a lawyer. To be honest with you, if I could say no, I'd run a mile. But I'm not sure that these public defenders have much of a choice. They get their cases assigned to them. So what's happened here is the courts assigned the case to this attorney. She's put two and two together that, oh, wow, Xana's mom's my client as well. As much as it looks unfair, it's in her best interest to create a totally arm's length distance. She's not going to want anything to do with Xana's mother right now going forward. But Xana's mother's not a witness in the case at this stage that we know of. She is a victim of whatever they call that in the United States, where everybody gets paid out by the victims fund. But that's about it. There's nothing else.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't think it's a conflict. It's not like there's no legal battle between Xana's mom and BRYAN KOHBERGER, other than the fact that he murdered her daughter. But she's got no case against him. She's got no civil case against him at this stage. So that attorney basically just did what she thought is the right thing. I don't think she had to stick with Xana's mom.
I don't think so either, but I think she chose KOHBERGER because she will be gaining more popularity for sure.
That's also what I think.
You know?
Look, it's a bigger case. It's about the money.
Yeah.
Right. She's gonna get $5,000 for being the public defender for Xana's mom. Right. She's gonna get $500,000 for doing KOHBERGER's trial. Who knows what she's gonna get paid?
Right.
I know that public defender doesn't get like the same money as a private lawyer, but when they're defending something like this, they get paid. They get an allocation for private investigators. They get basically whatever they want from the state or whatever they need to defend the client. So that's their business. And you know what? Good on the lawyers. One day when you or me are in trouble, hopefully never, we need a good lawyer, you know? That's how life goes. And everybody is entitled to defense, whether they did it or they didn't do it. They're entitled to their defense. They don't even have to speak.
Innocent until proven guilty, right?
100%. It's the onus is on the prosecution now to prove that this guy is guilty. Whether they can do that with this current evidence or not, it's anybody's guess. For me, if it wasn't for the DNA evidence on the knife sheet, I would say they've got nothing. Unless they've got something more from inside the house that they're not telling us, or unless they get something from the car that we don't know about yet, or they found something in his apartment that concrete links him to that house. Because that was a busy house. And him driving around at night, which it's now been shown that he did it 14 times before, doesn't prove he killed anybody. It can prove he was around the area. It can prove he left the university. The cell phone pings are inaccurate at best anyway. His phone was off. That could have been a dead battery, and
Right.
he could have just put his phone on the charger and waited however many 30 minutes before it got some power before it would power up again. You know, so there's reasons he could give that we're not even thinking of right now. I'm not saying he didn't do it. I'm not saying I don't think he didn't do it. The evidence looks pretty good that he's the one who was there. What
Sober
interests
100
me, what
No?
interests me here, T, is if BRYAN KOHBERGER wasn't the PhD student that he is, and his interest in crime and his posts on Reddit or wherever it was asking for participants to his survey and all of that. If that side of him didn't exist, I'm not sure we'd all be so convinced he's the killer. But when you add it all up, when you add the sheep, okay, so his DNA is there with the sheep, his vehicle's been around there all the time. Now that makes more sense as to why the vehicle was there before. And then you start looking around and you see that he's posted these weird questionnaires online, and he is heavily invested in the crime field. He's a bit of a loner. He's antisocial to what we can see or from what we know. Never had a girlfriend. I think it does point towards him being the killer. And who knows? You know, there's all the theories come up about the drugs and all the rest of it. Well, that's not really a conspiracy because the mom's a druggie, or at least she's a drug distributor. You know, so there's something to this drug thing.
Right.
And these
Can you
kids are young. These kids are
Roger,
young, so
your sound is very robotic.
is it bad? And now, is that better?
No,
Can you hear me?
it's horrible. Your sound is
Where?
horrible.
Bring somebody else on until the signal comes back better. T.
Oh, that's good. Now you're back.
Am I back?
The
Yeah,
question
it comes
was,
and goes.
yeah, it's a bit weird. The question was, can you do a little short recap on the case for people who did not follow in
Okay,
detail?
basically, 4 kids all murdered in one night in the period of about within a 15-minute period.
You
Is
have
the signal
audio.
going again? Yeah, put
We
somebody
can't
else
hear
on
you.
until.
You sound robotic. You sound robotic. Do you want me to put I see 2 other profiles of yours. Now
That
you're
might
back.
be the reason. That might be the reason the sound is so weird. Too many profiles. But Tanya, you can too many profiles or too many clones.
Roger, it could be that you have too many profiles going. Sounds good for you guys? Maybe I should be going out and coming back in.
I'm coming back in. No, I'm going out and coming back in. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you, but the audience seems to.
Can you hear me
seems to
now?
hear you fine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, but
You know what, guys?
very
I think it's on my end. Maybe it's on. Do you
No,
hear me?
see, it's my end. I can see my signal coming and going here. It's to do with the towers here because the power's off in the neighborhood. So rather put somebody else on and maybe it'll come back a bit better just now.
Okay, let's bring Jonathan on. I've never
Is he
talked
there?
to Jonathan. Yeah, he's there
Oh,
in the
bring him on.
background.
Brilliant. Yeah, he knows more than me about
Never
this. He's
talked to
been there.
Jonathan
Bring him
before.
on.
Pretty excited.
Hi, everyone. Good evening from Florida. How is everyone doing?
Hey, JLO, how you doing, my brother? Good to
I'm
see
good,
you. Thanks
Roger.
for
Nice
coming
to
on.
see you again. How are you
Thanks for
doing? I
coming
see
on.
Trevor Lee. I see two unfamiliar faces. How are you, Trevor Lee?
I'm good. How you doing?
I see the host. Hello, host. How are you?
Jonathan, this is Tanya. Tanya, I've known Tanya since the Watch groups in the beginning. She was the admin for the Justin Landy Facebook group about the Watch, and then we just got to know each other from there. She's based in Germany, and she's been running the channel I guess about 2 years now.
I'm sorry, you guys.
Is
It's
my
fine.
mic okay? Can you hear me okay?
Your
Yeah,
mic's good.
you
My sound's been coming in and out because we've got rolling blackouts here. So if I disappear, don't mind me. You guys just carry on chatting, and I'll pick up when I can.
Your
Yeah. So
sound is fine now.
thank you for having me on.
No problem.
So what's the topic?
Kohberger case. Give us the latest. Give us the latest on the Idaho 4.
Sure. Ann Taylor, Bryan Kohlberger's public defender, she's going down. She's going to be kicked off the case, no doubt, for sure. Revelations appeared that, you know, she previously represented 3 of the victims' family members. That would be Xana's mom, Kara Carnodal, Madison Mogen's father, Ben Mogen, and Madison Mogen's stepmom, Corey Hattenrock.
Wow.
It is believed that Ann Taylor was representing Bryan Kohlberger before she withdrew from representing Kara Carnodal. There was an official court document saying that she withdrew from Kara Carnodal's case on January 5th. But there is photos of Ann Taylor at the Moscow property, King Road property, where the murders happened on January 3rd. She was there with a team of investigators on behalf of Bryan Kohlberger. So, you know, there's a lot of outrage right now as far as Xana's mom being outraged because she's also claiming that as of now, Ann Taylor has power of attorney over her. And, you know, she feels like she lost trust and she feels betrayed. And, you know, I think all of this and the fact that the media is coming out with this, there's articles coming out daily about this potential conflict of interest. I think it's going to require a hearing coming up soon before Bryan Kohlberger's scheduled June 26th preliminary hearing. I think there's going to be some sort of hearing coming up about this potential conflict of interest. The judge has lots of options. The judge on her own, and that would be Judge Megan Marshall, who is the magistrate judge. She could, you know, without any parties involved, just on her own, just kick Ann Taylor off the case. But I think she's going. I think she's done. There's no possible way moving forward that she could represent Bryan because it creates huge problems. It creates huge problems, right? Because Bryan, when he gets convicted, and I believe he will be convicted, others might not agree. When he's convicted, he could use that prior representation of the victims' families as appellate issues to try to get his appeal, you know, get his conviction overturned on appeal. And then the fact that, you know, Ann Taylor knows maybe inside information about whatever Kara revealed to her over the years, she might use that for the benefit of Bryan's defense. So there's problems here. And there is people out there that's saying that, you know, Ann Taylor has to stay on Bryan Kohlberger's case because there's only a few qualified attorneys in the state of Idaho that can handle a death penalty type of case. But there's options there also, too, because, you know, the state has the option of getting private counsel for Bryan Kohlberger that could handle a death penalty case at the taxpayer's expense. It doesn't necessarily mean that he needs a public defender. He could get a private counsel. They could bring another public defender in, possibly from another state. And then, you know, Boise, Idaho, Ada County it seems like Boise, Idaho is the biggest city in the state. I'm sure there's qualified public defenders there that could represent Bryan. But I ultimately believe that there will be a change of venue with this case down the line, too. I do not believe there will be a trial in Latah County, Moscow. I believe it's going to be probably in a bigger county, most likely Boise, kind of like the Lori Daybell case that's going on. Lori Daybell was charged somewhere in eastern Idaho, way out there, and they moved the case. So if they moved her case to Boise, why wouldn't they move Brian, who is like tenfold? It's way bigger, a bigger case, bigger circus dealing with his case.
Oh yeah.
So that's my thoughts on that situation.
JLR, what's the legalities of the conflict here? Because technically the attorney, there's no, like, the attorney's representing the mom in one case, right? Why couldn't she just represent both? Because as much as Xana's mom is related to Xana and Brian murdered her daughter, what else is the connection, really? Well, am I wrong in thinking that?
The victim's families have a lot of say when it comes to this case, right? The victim's families, there's rules and regulations dealing with like victims' rights, and the family members are victims. So Xana's mom is actually a victim. She's a victim in this case. So, she'll have a say whether she wants the death penalty or not. She'll be able to consult with the prosecutor. She has a right to know any type of issues where Brian's shipped, where he's housed, if he sees parole. There's a lot of guidelines, and I encourage anyone to Google that. So that alone, to me, feels like that's a conflict just on that alone. And the fact that you can't represent. I don't think no ethical lawyer in the United States of America can both represent a victim's family member and a defendant who did something to a victim's family member. I can't see how that could be possible.
I've never heard of it.
To do. Now, in Ann Taylor's defense, she is a public defender for Kootenai County. If I don't say that right, I apologize. Some of the words and are very difficult up there. I don't know if it's French or I don't know what it is up there in Moscow. But she is the public defender for that particular county, and she represents lots of people, and not necessarily she represents, but other public defenders under her office might represent that. So people. So that's people's defense saying, well, Ann Taylor really doesn't know much about Kara, but still, I mean, the fact that she represented her, and I think they even crossed paths. I think she actually at one point between the 3rd of January to at least the 3rd of January through the 5th represented both of them at the same time. I think that's a problem.
I think you're 100% spot on with this. Imagine the attorney gets to like Brian and all the rest of it, and then the mom she wants the death penalty, and the attorney say, really, he's not such a bad guy and all of this. It could go that route.
And then the power of attorney is another issue too. I mean, if you look up a power of attorney, you just basically you manage the entire affairs over an individual. You basically control an individual. All of us have to do due diligence if we were going to sign over power of attorney to someone, right? Technically, Ann Taylor probably has control of her finances, what she can or cannot do. I mean, it's a very powerful tool. So that alone seems like that would be a conflict of interest too. Yeah,
definitely. Definitely, she's got to get another attorney urgently.
I think it's going to happen. Probably.
They're both going to end up with another attorney.
And Ann Taylor, she could save face, and she could save face and actually just drop out of the case before it gets to a hearing to decide if she should be kicked off the case, just to kind of save face per se. So she might just any day just say, hey, I'm withdrawing without a hearing required. Now, the judge is interesting too, because like I said, the judge could kick her off, but the judge could also keep her on. The judge could also say, nah, it's not a conflict of interest. You can adequately represent Bryan Kohberger. We're keeping you on. Bryan Kohberger, he could have a say in this. He could on his own say, hey, I don't want Ann Taylor anymore because he found out, or she told him, or he found out through the news or whatever that, she represented some of the victims. And Bryan Kohberger on himself could say, hey, I don't want you anymore. And he could file a pro se motion with the court saying, hey, I don't want this attorney anymore, you know? So the question is, does Brian even know about this going on right now?
Good
He
question.
probably is taking advantage of it because if I remember correctly, he demanded Dylan's phone number.
So it's not necessarily demanded the number. What's with that is the defense gets discovery, right? This defense gets all discovery from the prosecution. The prosecution has to hand over the discovery in a certain time period so the defense can analyze that and use that, use the information to prepare themselves for a preliminary hearing. With the discovery, according to Idaho court rules, and every state has its own rules, they have to hand over all the potential witnesses' contact information and addresses and whatnot. And that would be put in Bryan Kohberger's hands. Everything Bryan Kohberger's defense attorney gets, Bryan Kohberger gets to see. He gets access. The attorney is an agent for him. So it doesn't go to the public defender, Ann Taylor, and then she has to redact information and then give it to Brian. No, he gets what she gets. So, it looks like in the motion that was just filed, the response to discovery by the prosecutor, Mr. Thompson, it just was filed yesterday, I believe. I think they handed over the information already or are about to hand over the information. So, yeah, he gets all potential witnesses, and that would include Dylan Mortensen, I believe, because, we saw the affidavit of probable cause. Dylan is clearly a witness. I think she's the state star witness when it comes to this case. And she's definitely going to testify down the line. And even if she doesn't testify, the prosecutor puts her on to testify, the defense is most likely going to call her in to testify.
Oh, absolutely. What I was wondering and discussing with Roger before that stream started, why do you think, Jonathan, they caught him or they were on him so early on?
I just think it was just a national spotlight case, and I think it was like all hands on deck, and every available agency on there had to do something because there was so much pressure. You had some of the victims' families demanding answers, demanding, openness and transparency. The police were very tight-lipped. I just think the extreme pressure had them doing everything possible from, the cell phone pings and surveillance and whatnot, and it must have painted a picture and got Brian under the radar. I've read in the affidavit that, a Washington, at the Pullman, at the university campus police officer there ran the names of everyone that owned a white Hyundai Elantra that was registered to that university. And that kind of got them on, from that point, got Kohberger on the radar. And then I just think they just did their gumshoe type police work and kind of just, at that point, you kind of identify the guy and then start understanding where his phone's pinged at whatnot, and then corroborate it through these surveillance that, was seen all over the place, these surveillance stops, and it just kind of pinpointed him. And then the sheet. The sheet apparently left at the scene next to Madison Mogen's body. They probably ran DNA on that. And then we've heard through the affidavit, or we heard through news reports that police, while Bryan Kohberger was in Pennsylvania, they observed Kohberger going through the trash or his neighbor's trash, dumping some things. So they went into that trash and got some sort of DNA out of there and linked it to Bryan Kohberger. But there could be another possible, and people are not talking about this in reference to getting Brian's DNA. See, Brian was once a security officer for the Pleasant Valley School District. He was a security guard, I believe last year, and his father and his mother works for this school system. But if you look on their policy, they have to subject themselves to background checks and also submit their DNA, if you look. So anyone that wants to be a school officer or a school security guard with Pleasant Valley, they got to submit stuff, vital records and stuff like that. So maybe he was already in that database from that point, from getting that job, and they kind of matched it that way from the sheet. So, it's some people say it's all circumstantial, as far as the pings, because, Moscow to Pullman is very close. I was there. It's within 10 miles away. The cell phone towers are subjected to error, or I don't know how far they go out of radius. So people, are saying maybe he wasn't in Moscow at the time. And it just pinged like it was, close by, and I think that's definitely going to be a defense argument. And, the surveillance, there's nothing clear cut to say that his license plate was registered on these people's surveillance, though they do say that the car he had registered, Pennsylvania, I believe, doesn't have a front license plate, opposed to those two states, Washington State and Idaho, that have front and back requirements. So on the surveillance, they didn't see a front license plate. Therefore, it kind of puts it unfavorable for Kohlberger because he had a Pennsylvania registered car at the time with only the plate in the back. So we'll see what happens.
So Crime Cam's saying his DNA was not in the system.
Well, there you go. What I just said with the Pleasant Valley school system, I'm just, speculating here. I just looked on their, if you go to their, webpage, you see the requirements. They do have to submit their DNA and subject themselves to a black background check before they could be a security officer. Maybe they didn't do that with him, because his family seems like they've been working for that school system way longer than him. And maybe he just skated his way in, like as a favor.
Right.
For his parents.
Roger said, oh, he's a smart guy. If he's that smart, why didn't he know that place was full of surveillance cameras? I don't get it.
I don't get that either. I went there, and Highway 8 that goes from west to east, east to west, by the Walmart. The Walmart is on the outer skirts of Moscow. It's at the western edge, and right past the Walmart is the state of Washington. It says, welcome to the state of Washington. And every street corner going up to downtown Moscow has surveillance on these street lights, right? The red, stoplights, they have surveillance. So I'm dumbfounded why he wouldn't even know that he's definitely going to be under surveillance somewhere going into that Moscow home. Yeah, there's a couple side routes that don't have it going out from the Moscow home. There's some back roads that you could take that don't have it. But then you got to factor in neighbors, ring cameras, and neighbors got surveillance. I mean, I'm dumbfounded why he would think that he would not be on his vehicle, not on some sort of surveillance somewhere in that area. Definitely sloppy. For sure.
I think that he was so confident. There's loads and loads of Elantras in the area, in the world, basically. And if it wasn't for the knife sheath, I think that the evidence wouldn't be strong enough to hold him right now. If they just had the vehicle driving around, which it's been proven it's driven around like 14 times before, same area, doing the same thing. He might have been buying drugs. He might have been visiting a hooker or doing any crazy shit. I mean, we don't know what he could have been doing. But the knife sheath is the damning evidence to me. When you add it all up, that nails him. If it wasn't for that knife sheath, I mean, his cell phone going off, big deal. You can say his battery went dead, and he put the phone on the charger. And it took 40 minutes for the phone to get a bit of power, and then he charged it up when he got back home.
So a lot of people say, why would he go back to that house that next morning, around 9:30ish and whatnot? And, people speculate because he was going to retrieve the sheath. But I can't understand how somebody would kill somebody at 4 or 5 a.m., 4:30 a.m., 4:18 a.m., and then go back to the murder house the next day, knowing that there probably is going to be police everywhere. Somebody's going to find the bodies before him, but he went allegedly back there around 9 o'clock, probably to get the sheath, to try to get the sheath out.
I think to get the sheath, and I don't think he saw Dylan. I think if he saw Dylan, he would have killed her. Maybe he was tired and that, but there's no ways he would have left her alive, knowing that he's got to drive another 20 minutes or so to get back home. And yeah, I just don't think so. Would you leave a person with a cell phone standing in front of you if you've just killed 4 people? I don't think so.
I mean, a lot of times in crimes, people commit crimes, they get rid of the witnesses. So I just can't see how, if he did see her, he just like, oh, I'm going to let her live.
No, I can't see it. So I think he didn't see her. And I think that leaving the knife sheath behind is a mistake that even the smartest guy can make. It's just, you think you're that smart, but in the heat of the moment, you make mistakes.
Yeah, I think he just didn't notice, or he noticed in the morning.
When he got driving back, I guarantee you, he realized driving back home, oh shit, where's the sheet? And then he thought, okay, I can't go back now. I'll go back at 9 a.m. They'll still be dead. Nobody will have found them yet. These kids all sleep till 11 a.m., 12. I mean, my kid was in varsity. They sleep half the morning away. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, you know, and at the beginning, before BRYAN KOHBERGER was arrested, there was some news reports that a neighbor was claiming that the front door of the house was open between 8:30 and 9 a.m. It was open. So the question is, if BRYAN did go back there, according to the cell phone pics, he probably went back to the area. Did he actually go back in that house? Or
could
not?
Have, exactly. Yeah, he could have gone back in that house. Correct. And
You
maybe
know,
the sheet, maybe he couldn't get, maybe he just couldn't find the sheet. Maybe it was underneath one of the girls. Maybe it was underneath a bed sheet. We just don't know. And he wouldn't have known.
Do we know at what time Dylan's friends arrived?
So there's a lot of speculation, probably around 11:30ish a.m. Sometime. I was personally told that the next door neighbors came, and the next door neighbor male went into that home and then came out, and then they called 911. So it's still a little confused about that, but it seems like it was about a half hour before that 11:58 a.m. Phone call. So I believe they had enough time to be able to call Ethan Chapin's brother, Hunter Chapin, to come to the scene. And he did.
Oh my
so, but going back to what you said, Roger, like, I can't, Dylan Mortensen, even if he just thought that, oh, I'm going to let you live, and for seeing her, if she would have picked up and called the police right there, 911, they would have called KOHBERGER that night.
Correct. That's why I don't think
he's so small and it's so dense. They would have put up robots. There's not many roads around there getting out of there where you can go hide. Like, they would literally put up roadblocks, and they would have started the ping sequence there and all the phones in there. They would have nailed him within that day, within that night. Yeah. They'd have got him. So I can't see. Yeah, and that's why I kind of agree. He probably didn't see it. He probably didn't.
I think he probably went back. Either he got spooked by people around the house, maybe neighbors or something, or he went in and he didn't find it, and then he just thought, oh, well, you know what? Maybe my DNA is not on the sheet. What are they going to do with the sheet? If he wore gloves, he probably thought the DNA is not on the sheet. But, when you put your gloves on, you put DNA on the gloves outside too.
Yeah. So hopefully more of this information comes out at the preliminary stage. I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's some sort of loophole. Possibly he could get indicted by a grand jury, and it bypasses the preliminary hearing process, so it doesn't put the victims up there to have to testify to determine if there's probable cause to forward it to the district court. I don't know how that works. And with the benefits, to a grand jury indictment, Idaho has some sort of rules. I have to do a little bit of research on that. But that might be in a scenario too that the prosecutor does. But hopefully more comes to light, that they can share. I still don't think the authorities fully know the extent of this.
I don't think so either.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think they just knew that, look, we got this guy's DNA. We got to get him off the street, because who knows if he's going to murder any more people, imagine him driving back across America alone without dad, stopping off at every town.
It is just so scary, He's the ultimate person to fear, because he's not so obvious, student, and I mean, it's really chilling. And what's your opinion, or what do you think about the motive?
So I'm trying to wrap my head around that. I can't imagine a stranger just picking a random house in the middle of the night, not knowing anything about the occupants whatsoever, and going in there and just saying, hey, I'm going to take these people out without knowing anything. I mean, clearly you could see in the front driveway, multiple cars there. I'm sure lights are on and off. That is like the humongous risk. I mean, you know, that someone could take. He had to have some sort of encounter with them, I'm suspecting. Now, you know, the DoorDash thing I am a little bit interested in, that Xana received the DoorDash at 4 a.m. Don't know what exactly the DoorDash was, but I'm speculating that the DoorDash was probably a Jack in the Box bag and some sort of Jack in the Box meal, because at the crime scene, reporters were taking pictures and there was a Jack in the Box bag at the sink, at the crime scene, the front sink, and it had Xana's name on it. Jack in the Box, there is no Jack in the Box in Moscow. It shut down years ago. The closest Jack in the Box is Pullman, Washington. Kohlberger lives right by there. So I speculated maybe Kohlberger maybe called the Jack in the Box possibly as a ruse or something like that, knowing that somebody is going to answer that door. Possibly. I mean, that's a theory that I'm going to. I do not believe that Kohlberger went into the Mad Greek like People Magazine reported. People Magazine reported that they claim a former worker said that he was in there. I don't believe that. There's nothing, no evidence of that. So I don't know, but you would think that he had some sort of encounter with them somewhere. One of them, there was a profile allegedly of Kohlberger who was following Kaylee and Madison on Instagram, following the profiles. But Roger, you know that people can, once somebody's in the news, you can manipulate and start following people and change names on Instagram and whatnot, and change profile names and whatnot. You can do that. So don't know if someone did that after the fact to troll everyone. Who knows?
I also think he kind of must have known them from somewhere. I don't know how well he knew them.
Well, Kaylee's dad said that he found a link between them, but he cannot talk about it right now.
Yeah, and I think that in Brian's mind, he knew that house. That's for absolute sure, because he'd been in that area many, many times.
Yeah.
So even me, like if I were to think, if I were going to commit a crime in that house, I would think, well, must be 100 people's DNA there. Like, really, that's the place to commit a crime if you're going to commit a crime.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, again, I just circled straight back to the sheet. I see that as the only incriminating evidence that links everything up. If it wasn't for that sheet, I don't think they had anything. I don't think they got enough to even arrest the guy. Driving around an area, having your cell phone ping off a couple of towers, that's not a crime. Driving around at night's not a crime. So if there was no DNA, even if Dylan was the witness, I mean, how many guys have got bushy eyebrows, that wearing a mask, wearing all black? I mean, that's not a positive identification of anyone. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but this is really how I see it.
Me too.
So if they can get rid of that DNA evidence, if the defense can get past that DNA evidence, this is a crazy case to look at. It's not a slam dunk.
Yeah.
I mean, we've watched Barry Morphew's case get taken out of court. I thought they had a lot of evidence on him, but I was totally wrong. And then we saw what was that guy's name? Fotis Doulos, who killed himself because obviously he thought they had enough evidence on him. So you never really know with these cases.
Jonathan, you're muted. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. I muted myself. Speaking of Fotis Doulos, I'm actually going to be up in that area next week covering that case because Michelle Troconis actually has a hearing at the end of February. I'm going to be up in that area, and I'm going to be up in the Brian Walsh. Brian Walsh is accused of killing his wife and dismembering her and putting her in dumpsters and whatnot. So I'm actually going to be in the Northeast next week and the week after, covering those two cases. Because but Fotis Doulos, that was insane too. That's a bizarre case in itself.
Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Wow.
The sheath, I concur. The sheath is basically the smoking gun evidence when it comes to this whole case. I believe the sheath and the DNA, and I just can't see how, a judge will not allow that into the record. No matter what the defense uses and says, whether it's chain of command or the DNA is tainted or whatever defense they use, I believe that eventually it'll be admissible and will be presented to the jury if it gets to that point.
I believe it'll be admissible. I'm just trying to think, what if Brian did have some connection to these other kids? And
I think he did.
Somehow.
Maybe he was
rejected one of those kids was in his car before or something like that. If he can prove that, he can say, oh, well, I touched the sheet, or she took the sheet with her, or whatever. I mean, I don't know what he's going to come up with, but he's going to come up with something, or he's going to plead guilty and take a plea, which is also a strong possibility, because if it is a death penalty case, the chances are, if he looks at the evidence like as what it is, I would take the plea deal.
So as far as there's options Bryan Kohberger could do at a preliminary hearing. So at the preliminary hearing, it's determined if there's enough probable cause to pass it over to the district court. Now, defendants and prosecutors have a lot of leeway at the preliminary hearing to wheel and deal with one another, and it's very possible that Kohberger's attorney, whoever that will be, if it's Ann Taylor or whoever, can go to the prosecutor and say, "Look, we'll waive the preliminary hearing if you decide not to seek the death penalty." Because once that initial plea is made, then the prosecution by law in Idaho has 60 days to decide if they're going to seek the death penalty or not, right? So they can wheel and deal. He can make deals with the prosecution, because sometimes the prosecutor doesn't want to bring the witnesses there at the preliminary because he doesn't want to subject them to exposure, or they say something at the preliminary that down the line at trial they might contradict themselves or something, get caught up. So they really don't want the witnesses that they have or their key pieces of evidence admitted there at the preliminary, because it could be subjected to scrutiny or whatnot down the line. So they waive it, and they agree with the defense to waive certain charges. Now with this, obviously they won't waive murder charges, but Brian is charged with burglary, but I think that's kind of relevant anyway. So I think the only trump card that Kohberger's defense team has is, that death penalty. Get that death penalty off the table and then move it forward. So
Taylor, what's his day like where he's at right now? Is he like in real lockup, or is he in like halfway in between?
Yeah, so I was there. I was at the I checked it out. It's the Latell County Detention Center jail. It's actually at the bottom of the courthouse. It is at the courthouse, and the courthouse is an old, looks like a school kind of. It does not look like a traditional courthouse. It doesn't have the tall pillars or whatnot and go through it. I didn't even see metal detectors in this courthouse, and the defendants are held in the basement. It's like a basement area. This is what I was told. And I went there to look myself, and it seems like the inmates are held in the basement. It only holds a few dozen people. So it's probably just these old cells down there in the basement. I don't think they could see light coming out of there, like any kind of windows, because if it's on the bottom floor, I don't think they can see sunlight or whatnot. So, he's probably in his own little wing area. I think there was one former inmate that went on one of the news networks and was describing the conditions there. He's probably in his own little, I don't think he's interacting with other inmates there. And I do believe that the jail there, due to the fact that this is a high profile case, is going to make sure he's safe. They're not going to make sure anything happens to him because it'd be a bad light on them. So they're going to do everything by the book, but they're also going to do everything to protect him. So, he doesn't make any crazy allegations saying he was abused or beat up or anything like that. So they're going to keep the inmates away from him and, give him the privileges that any other inmate is entitled to get. I really believe that. So what that is, I don't know. I know that they don't have contact visits there. I know the visitation that you receive there is via a telephone, looking through the glass, and you speak to somebody through the glass. Don't know if he can receive commissary. Don't know how much money he can receive on his books to get whatever. I don't know if he can get magazines, books. I don't know about that. But he's basically isolated by himself. And, he's going to be, whether it's at this county jail or if it's a change of venue, he gets changed to another place. He's going to be in a county jail like that for at least 2 years. This is not going away anytime soon. This trial is going to be years down the line. I say 2 years, could be 3.
Yeah,
could be a long time.
And then only after that he gets sentenced to go to his real jail where he's going to end up living his life.
Yeah, and Idaho has probably a few jails. Most states have multiple jails, different security levels. He would obviously go to a maximum security jail, but it's also possible too. We'll use the Chris Watts case and the James Holmes case out of Colorado. They were ultimately shipped to different prisons and out of state, because of just, their life could be at the risk if they stay in, BRYAN KOHBERGER gets sentenced to life or death, which I believe either or, I believe he's going to get convicted. They might keep him out of the Idaho prison and arrange something with another state where he does his time out of state, because, he would be, other people out of state won't know about the case as much, and his life won't be in much danger, because there's probably going to be people angry with him and probably try to take a swipe at him just to make a name for themselves.
Right. I think it's hard to get a jury together.
That too. The case out of Delphi, Indiana, with Richard Allen. He's from Carroll County, Indiana. They had to get a jury from northern Indiana to bring in impartial jury. Now they're keeping his trial there in that county and bringing in the jury, and that's a possibility with KOHBERGER too. The jury could, they very well could keep the case there. I doubt it, but if they did keep the case there, the other alternative would be to bring a jury in from another county, because there's no way that you could get a impartial jury from that Moscow area. Probably everyone knows everybody there and has been affected by this case some way or something. It's a very small area. I mean, once you go outside Moscow, there's nothing, either way, north, south, east, or west. I mean, Pullman's to the west, but I went east towards Kendrick, that area. There was nothing, and I even went south a little bit, going down towards Lewiston, between Lewiston and Clarkston, Washington to Moscow. There's nothing. I mean, there's just small little areas. So the makeup of the jury is most likely probably going to be from Moscow, which is a university town. And basically, the University of Idaho is the #1 employer there for that town. It's the economy there.
Wow. So Lady Sarah has a question. Did BK have connections to WSU police through his PhD, work STA, and work with police? Was that how they found this particular Elantra?
So the affidavit of probable cause said a officer with Washington State University just was running a cross-reference and found out everyone's name that was registered to the university and had a match through that way in reference to his Hyundai Elantra. And then the police used investigative tactics from that point. As far as his connections to police, it's been out there that I guess he tried to, KOHBERGER tried to get a internship or something with the Pullman Police Department, or tried to work with the program with them, or some sort of program. And he had correspondence with the police chief there, with Pullman Police Chief Gary Jenkins at the time. I believe Gary Jenkins now is in Washington. There's 2 police forces there, actually, believe it or not. It's Pullman Police Department, which I believe is the ones that did the warrants and stuff to BRYAN KOHBERGER's home, I believe, and then Washington State Police, or Washington State University Police. The university police has its own police force. So I think it's 2 different police forces there. So a lot of people get confused thinking it's 1, but it's actually 2 there. So yeah, he applied for something there, some sort of work. He wanted to work with the police department, and don't know if he actually, I guess it's reported, don't know if he actually got the job or not. I don't know. Maybe somebody out there knows. Yeah.
Don't we believe there's more evidence than what was revealed in the arrest affidavit? Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I believe so. And I think they're going to find stuff in his car. There's no ways you can murder 4 people, stab them up in that kind of frenzy, and leave nothing on yourself and nothing in your car. And he'll think he's wiped that car clean, but you can't get blood off. It's just really, really difficult. You need serious acids and stuff. But you're gonna burn your car seat material away the fabric's going to disintegrate before you're going to get rid of that blood evidence.
So the affidavit when on the arrest by Corporal Brett Payne with Moscow police, the affidavit doesn't talk about what was seized from the Pullman apartment that he was living in Steptoe. That's a totally different arrest affidavit from Washington. And in that search of his apartment, I mean, it said they found an animal hair, some hair. They took a where did they take a fire stick? They took a a vacuum cleaner, the container for the vacuum cleaner or whatnot. So at least they got something, mattresses, I believe, mattress covers or something that they took there. So maybe some of that they'll run tests on down the line and to determine if any DNA from the victims, or even with the animal hair, whose dog, and I was suspecting it could be Kaylee's dog, Murphy, as that animal hair. That could be it too, something out of that search could link him to the victims too. That will be used against them. That's not in the actual arrest affidavit on the Washington or on the Moscow, Idaho side.
I also think
that we have a lot in the arrest affidavit. Considering data, phone data, they revealed a lot of stuff.
Oh, it's definitely, to me, it's definitely very strong circumstantial evidence. I mean, the direct evidence is clearly the sheath. That's the only direct evidence I really see, but everything else is really, really strong circumstantial evidence to tie in with that direct evidence to paint a picture.
Right.
Very difficult to explain this picture away. I agree. It's when you put it all together, it's very difficult to explain it away.
It's going to be hard. I mean, due to the fact that the optics is a big play into here, university, just the amount of national tension and pressure is just the odds against Kohlberger is he has an uphill battle for sure.
Yeah.
He's got a strong uphill battle.
I think he's toast. Personally, I do think they have him and he will get convicted, and I think they're probably even gonna send him to death.
If he was smart.
I'm interested to know what
they're too much under pressure.
So Kohlberger, I'm still dumbfounded why he would sign over extradition and just voluntarily go back to Idaho. If he was smart and he knew he did it, he should have fought it in Pennsylvania or even killed somebody in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania doesn't execute people more or less anymore. I think they still have the death penalty, but they don't. But he could have stayed in Pennsylvania and literally been closer to his family. I mean, you're signing off extradition. You're going to a 4-way land, pretty much where you have zero community ties and don't know anyone. I mean, I thought that was a bonehead move too. If he knows he's guilty,
if he didn't agree,
he should have done everything in his power to stay in PA.
What would the process have been if he didn't agree? Would that be a long, drawn-out process just to get the extradition?
It actually, if you look it up, it results in governors of both states signing orders to extradite. Like, basically, the governor of Idaho would have to get a hold of the governor of Pennsylvania. Down the line, if he just keeps fighting it, and even the court orders and he keeps fighting it, will go ultimately to the governors, handing him over more or less. But that alone takes like a year to do. It's not overnight, for sure. So, he could have just muddied the waters right from the get-go and go through that process, and why he decided to do it so quickly. I mean, apparently, LaBar, that attorney out there in Monroe County, said he wants to go out there and clear his name. He's innocent. I mean,
he thinks he's very smart. That's what I think. He didn't know what the evidence was at the time, though, because he wouldn't have seen the affidavit at that stage. So he's got a good reason for his sheath. I'm sure he's thought of that, right? He just didn't know all the other evidence that links him up as well. So that's all this guy never expected to get caught. He whatever evidence he left in his apartment back in Washington, he left it there. He did not expect the cops to be coming in his apartment while he's going to be 4,000 or 3,000 miles away.
Right.
And I think he probably ditched the knife. Yeah, somebody's just said it there. I think he probably ditched the knife. So he was on his way back that morning.
So this is my theory about the knife or ditching the murder weapon. So we saw the affidavit. That morning he went back to the Moscow home allegedly around 9 a.m. And then his phone was pinging down there in Clarkston, Washington, which is south of there, a little after noon on that day, on the 13th, a little after noon. Then they said the phone pinged in Johnson, but the affidavit said Johnson, Idaho, but in reality they changed that. It was actually Johnson, Washington. There's a Johnson, Washington between Clarkston and Pullman. And then it said around 5:30-ish, his phone went blank, like it turned off from 5:30 to 8:30. So I'm suspecting around Johnson, Washington, I'm suspecting that he might have pulled over there. It's all wooded area and went back into the woods or whatever like that to ditch not only the knife, but maybe other evidence like clothing or whatnot, whatever evidence he had, and got rid of it out there somewhere in the woods in Johnson, Washington, then turned his phone back on while he got back to Pullman around 8:30, 9 o'clock that night. That's what I'm suspecting.
Now, do you think he took the same route to get to the murders as what he took back? I think he took a different route on the way back.
So
from those pings on the towers.
Yeah, so there is one logical way that makes sense that you might not be seen is when you pull out of the Moscow home, you make a left. I want to say Walenta, and then Walenta turns around and works its way down, and you go to Palouse River Road, and you could go west from there, and it takes you into Washington State, and then it cuts down and goes back and connects to 95 south. But there's really no security cameras that are on streetlights. The only thing that you could possibly get maybe somebody's Ring camera or surveillance in their own homes. But I took that route, and that's the only route. And I actually made a video about it. You know, this was a possible escape route of whoever the killer was at the time. Okay. That's the only way I see that he could go undetected, because if you go east on Palouse River Road, you hit Main Street there, and there's surveillance all over the streetlights. Now, they could not be working. They might not be working. They might be there just for show or not functionable at the time. But, you know, I'm thinking he went down Palouse River Road and then went left. I believe it's Sand Road, and then that connects to Washington State, but it's all rural back there. It's like there's nothing back there. So I'm suspecting
that's his route, I'm sure. And you know what? I know you said that there's a lot of cameras and so forth. Maybe he just didn't think that. Maybe he took a drive, had a look, didn't really see them, and thought, oh, well, this is going to be easy. Maybe he thought they're never even going to be looking for him.
Possibly. You know, when I was there a month after the murders happened. So I was there about the beginning of December. And while I was there, police at the time were actually in eastern Idaho in some small towns. I don't know the two towns' names offhand, but they were asking the gas stations and stores way east if they had surveillance on a white Hyundai Elantra. So that makes me believe even in the beginning of December, they really didn't know about Kohlberger, because they were out there in eastern Idaho looking for surveillance. And these gas stations, like the 76 gas station, it's a town east of Idaho. It's about 15 miles. I don't know the name offhand. I went in there and I talked to the employees, and I made a video about it, and they told me on record, you know, the authorities were here asking about surveillance. And another Phil's Market, some other town that's even more east of there. So it's 45 miles east. 40, 35 miles east. They went out that way at the beginning of December. So it makes me think at the time, at the beginning of December, they still really didn't have Kohlberger on the radar like that. Something happened probably, I would say, between December 10th to the time he was arrested. Somewhere in that time, in that 2-week frame, I think that's when he really came on their radar for good. And because remember, he bolted out of town on the 15th to head back to PA.
What do you think about his statement he made when he was arrested? If they had arrested anyone else yet?
Interesting on that. I mean, you know, made me think there's an accomplice or there's others involved. I mean, clearly, I don't know why he would just say that unless he's just using it as a ruse.
Maybe law enforcement got a tip off.
But did he really say that? I mean, this was a report, but did he really say that? Is this somebody just making it up?
That's the other thing. Yeah, you never know until you know with these cases.
Yeah,
You
but
know, a lot of
many
media,
news
I can
stations
be clear,
reported
you know, I've
about
seen a
that,
lot of
though.
media put out some misinformation about this case, stuff that ended up not being true.
Look,
Yeah,
there is that other there is that other fellow. I think his name was Brent. Was it
Yeah,
Brent?
yeah, Kopaka.
Who
Kopaka.
also got involved in a shootout with the cops at Washington State. I mean, that's also within the same time frame. It's
Range,
like,
same time frame. I haven't
yeah,
found
it's like,
any direct connection between the both. I've been searching extensively to find out if they both have any ties to one another or cross paths, and I have yet to find anything on that. But I am open-minded to a possible theory that he was involved because just the circumstances amongst the shootout around that timing from that area. He's an outdoorsman, military, you know, makes me believe, you know, was he an accomplice of Kohlberger? I don't think so, but I'm open-minded to it.
I'm also open-minded in this case. Anything's possible. It's
Hey
also
guys, I
not
gotta go.
impossible.
My phone is about to die, but I appreciate
All right.
you.
Thank you so much for
Thanks,
all the
Trevor.
information.
Yeah, thank
Hope
you.
to have you back here soon.
We'll talk again soon. I'm more than happy to come back on.
Absolutely.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, be safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow, you guys, that he really knows this case inside out. I mean,
yeah, I told you.
crazy. I sometimes couldn't even follow.
When I said to you, he's our man on the ground, I mean, he's our man on the ground.
Oh yeah, and
Like,
he's going
really,
everywhere.
Yeah, he's all over.
I was
Jonathan's
binge-watching his videos. Crazy.
He's an enigma. Jonathan's a human enigma.
Yeah, he really is.
He knows his stuff, and he knows the law. So yeah, always
From
good and always
different
very
states.
interesting.
He knows the law from different states. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's studied it, you know. So he's it's his game. He's studied it. He's had an interest in it for many, many years. So yeah, always interesting to hear what he's got to say about the case. Always makes sense.
Good guy. Good guy.
Yeah, good guy.
All right.
So let's bring on Trevor on.
Trevor.
Is he still there in the back?
Yep, I'm here.
Did you fall asleep? I'm sorry.
There you go.
No, I was always love these conversations.
Oh yeah. He also knows a lot about the Summer Wells case, right? I've been watching a few videos.
This is Trevor. This is Trevor's passion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Trevor, would you mind doing a little recap on the Summer Wells case for people like me who stopped following, and what's going on in this case?
Absolutely. So there haven't been too many revelations, but I'll just jump back from the front and kind of catch us up where we are now. Of course, June 15th, 2021, Summer was reported missing from her home in Hawkins County around 6:30 p.m. Her mother had called the father saying she was missing, and 911 was called thereafter. She had said they were outside planting flowers. She had sent her inside to go to the basement into the room that she plays in a lot. And from there, her mom went inside to find her, yelled for her, wasn't there, yelled outside a couple times, and that's when she realized she was gone, called her husband, and 911 was then called. Since then, there have been 3 at least publicly known searches, one lasting, of course, the couple weeks when she first went missing. Then they scaled it down and have done 2 since with law enforcement and search crews. Her father was incarcerated for about half the year last year, was released the day before Halloween. And as far as evidence from law enforcement, they don't even have a mode of investigation yet. So we're still where we are since that day.
So I think I can, or you can tell us about it. Your recent article I read was that you think that the parents or one of her parents are definitely know more than they let on.
Yes. So with the changing stories and the odd time frame that hasn't even been verified by law enforcement, the day that she went missing, the time frame from that day is still in the air. And with all those questions, there seem to be more questions than answers, and that leads me to believe that at minimum, they know more than they lead on to.
What I heard about this case is that they went swimming. Was it the day she went missing, right?
Yes, they went swimming at a local park. There was a near a horse farm or a horse barn. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. They went swimming in the pond there, connected to a big park we have here.
Okay, and after that, the photo of her sleeping in the car was made, right? So I have two questions. First of all, why would somebody take a picture of its child sleeping that day? I mean, you know, we're parent. I don't know if you have children, but I do have two children. I do take pictures of all kinds, but this seemed a little bit odd to me.
I agree.
You know, I mean, you see many pictures of Summer, you know, playing outside and doing stuff, but never a picture of her in a car sleeping. So I found that picture, I don't know, I don't even know what to think about this. I think it's creepy, and I think it's I don't want to lean too far out the window, but to me it seems like it's a that picture was taken to cover some things up, to kind of prove later on she was still alive and well, if that makes sense.
I agree, and I've pondered that too with that picture, because like you said, not just only a picture for sleeping, but what child chooses to fall asleep on cold milk? I mean, I know they were outside and they went swimming and stuff, but that's not cooling off. That's like, you know, super cold to lay your head down in and try to sleep.
Look, in terms of having a look at a dead person's face, generally speaking, it would be a lot bluer than that. But, I mean, it's not always the case. So, a bit of makeup and anybody can look good. I mean, if you've all been to funerals, you've all seen an open coffin, I presume. Not that it's fun, but those people look like they're alive.
Right.
You know, and I've just been to one, well, this last year in July, where they had open coffin, and it was like, wow, it's like looking at my friend. It's like he's absolutely alive, you know. You wouldn't have known he was dead. So, yeah, it's possible. But, yeah.
I don't know. Don, what do you think?
In particular about this photo?
Yeah.
Well, at least she's not covered with a bedsheet.
Yes.
Like in the Watts case, but I tend to be more skeptical, as you all know me, and it is not the moment to have strong convictions. I still think that all possibilities are open. I tend to consider more open the kidnapping situation, and maybe when you will want, Tanya, I will show you a bigger picture.
Oh yeah, of course. Do you want me to? Do you want to show something? Share a screen?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
I would like to talk about missing children, and because I think this is a pattern.
A pattern?
Yes. Do you think she's been kidnapped?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Okay. It's possible because, as Trevor was saying earlier backstage,
do you see my page?
He was saying there is child trafficking in the area. You know, just a statistic I'd like to. Yeah, I was about to say this. This is something that's unbelievable. 2,300 missing kids every single day in the United States. We open groups on the ones we hear about, which are one here, one next week, maybe one in another month's time. But there's 2,300 kids per day going missing.
Crazy.
It's unbelievable. I've also seen this article. It's unbelievable.
Let's have a look at the reasons. As you can see, the author of this article identified 5 main categories. The benign ones, like misunderstandings, the runaway or thrown away, which is mind-blowing to throw away a child. But anyway, lost, stranded, or injured, family abduction, and stranger abduction. And if we focus a little on what they call non-family abduction and stereotypical kidnapping statistics, we see that 81% were 12 years old or older in non-family cases, 58% were 12 years old or older in stereotypical kidnappings. They mean by stereotypical kidnappings those cases that occur when a stranger or slight acquaintance transports a child 50 miles or more from home and either kills the child, holds the child for ransom, or intends to keep the child permanently. Sadly, in 40% of these stereotypical kidnappings, the child is killed. 4% the child is not recovered, so not even the body was recovered. 86% of the perpetrators are male, and the abducted children are predominantly female. I will add to this article something more to understand that the situation is even bigger at international level. Australia, 20,000 children reported missing every year. Canada, 45,000 and some. Germany, 100,000 children reported missing each year. Let's see, United Kingdom, 112,853 children. United States, 460,000 children. So this is just a snapshot because many countries have no such statistics.
What age up to what age are these statistics? I'd like to see a breakdown between, say, up to 7 years old, up to 13 years old, and then I'm sure this is probably going up to 16 or 18, I would say, minimum 16.
Just a second, hold on. I would like to present you one of the tools that law enforcement is using to, let's say, interrogate about missing persons or other types of people. There is a National Crime Information Center. Maybe some of you know or heard about it. I know for a long time. This is a database where every law enforcement agency is inserting records, data about fugitives, missing people, stolen property, terrorists, or other such duties. It is managed by the FBI since 1967. They have more than 17 million active records for now. So it is a valuable tool used by the law enforcement. And since you wanted a more detailed statistic, this is the last one from NCIC from 2021. The missing persons are categorized into people with disability, endangered, involuntary, juvenile, catastrophe victims, or other. Some of them are obvious. Disability, we know what is. Endangered, a person who is missing under circumstances indicating that his or her physical safety may be in danger. Involuntary, we are talking about abduction or kidnapping. Juvenile, a person who is not declared emancipated by the law. Catastrophe victim is obvious, and other, anything else that doesn't fall in the above categories. So let's see.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Sure.
Thank
This
you.
is a statistic, a monthly statistic based on the above categories I indicated. We see that there are in total over 500,000 entries, but on the right side we have purged records or solved cases. Let's say 485,000 records. Nevertheless, we have more than let's see, 15.
There's 36,000, still 36,000 missing.
Yeah.
37,000 missing records, unsolved. Now,
this is a lot of people.
Yes. Now, what you wanted?
There you go.
Sorted by age, sex, and race.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
This is a very interesting statistic, and I invite you all to study it because it speaks volumes. What can we see? That the most, let's say, the people missing are mostly white, followed by black and others.
And way more female than males.
Yes, in terms of gender, more females than males, but let's say 60-40%.
Yeah.
Now we have another category based on another sort category, age and sex. Let's see. Involuntary, the most, no, not the most cases, but juvenile, there is a majority of 173,000 cases for females and 143,000 cases for male missing persons. It is something that caught my eyes. I think it's the last one. Let's see. Not this one. I think this one. Yes, we're talking only United States, of course, and we see that in total, unsolved missing person cases, they are much more than anticipated. Only white people, yes, white people in general, 50,000, black 30,000, and so on. this is the bigger picture. And if
But
you
there's
remember,
more male in active cases than female.
yes,
How's that?
this sorting is for all ages. It is very possible that many older people are male that are missing, let's say. But as I said, it is very interesting to look at it closely, and you can draw your own conclusion based on these statistics. What I would like to say is that by kidnapping, we're usually thinking to, let's say, some weirdo, some mental patient, somebody with a fetish or a pedophile. That is not usually the case. Some children are abducted or kidnapped for trafficking. I don't really how to say it, but on one hand, I would like Samuel Wells to be alive and to be part of a trafficking network. I know it sounds not right, but at least she would be alive. But there is a darker side to that. There are people kidnapped for other darker things. And if you remember, I told you in my last live stream with Tanya something about John Bennett Ramsey case. I have received information that I consider firsthand and very credible that John Bennett Ramsey was one of these cases. I mean, she was not kidnapped, but apparently she was killed in a satanic ritual or a sacrifice that took place with her father's knowledge. I'm still studying this possibility. I'm gathering information. There are people that helped me to in this endeavor, but in my opinion, everything points to that, especially why the cover up. Maybe some other time we will do a live stream about that, and I will present you everything that I have.
That would be great.
So,
Trevor, do you think? Oh, sorry.
yeah. No, I just wanted to say that the picture is much bigger, and
Yeah.
Trevor does a good job by raising awareness of this case. Sadly, there are more other Samuel Wellses out there.
Right. Do you think there's the possibility, because I read in chat that the parents sold the kids?
I think there's the possibility, especially with the fact that they were so deeply involved in buying drugs and having drugs, and those deals that go from you owing somebody a debt to them taking their debt. I mean, it comes to a point that people will take whatever to settle a debt, and who knows if they had those. I mean, it's all speculation, of course, but we do know that they've been drug users and been in trouble for that, and who's to say that they didn't owe the wrong person or wrong group,
Right. Oh my God, this is just horrible. And he is, You said when we talked before we went live, you said their behavior is weird, that they moved on so quickly. What do you mean by saying that?
So very early on in the case, they gave a news interview, and it seemed odd to me just their robotic behavior. But what it came down to after that was her father Don saying that we'll see her in the resurrection. She won't be found, and this was very early on, within the first 2 to 3 weeks. It wasn't, after the normal process of grief passes, and you eventually have to. If years and years passed, I would see them saying, we're not going to get her back, and having to process that and come to grips with it. But within that quick of a time frame, there's no way that a parent should give up hope, or could give up hope. I don't see how a parent could, honestly.
Are they still actively searching for her?
Are law enforcement?
Both law enforcement and parents?
I haven't seen the parents do much of that. Early on, they were out putting up sunflowers on at least one occasion. The mom was in a local parade, and they gave her a banner to hold up with Summer's face on it. But more recently, I'm not sure that they've done much of anything. Law enforcement is still looking into the case and investigating all leads, but it's kind of been a dead end case so far. I spoke with law enforcement on the state level recently, and they told me that there's been no movement towards a resolution since June 15th, 2021. So since the day she went missing.
Oh my God. How comes that you are so involved in this particular case?
I'm not sure. I mean, of course, I live really local, and this case came up, and I've always worked with kids and just had a passion there, and just felt called to do more than just, maybe share a post or hope that she gets found. I was like, I want to step in and hopefully be a part of that resolution to the case, hoping it'd be quicker than it has been, obviously, but was gonna do what I could to make awareness, put up flyers. I put up the money for the reward. I just wanted to really do what I could to know I gave my effort into hopefully finding her safely and resolving this case.
Oh, that's very, very nice of you.
How,
Craftastic is asking if her dad is still in prison. He was
No,
recently in prison, right?
yeah, he was released October 30th of 2022, sorry,
Oh, okay.
of last year.
how big of community is in there? How many
I'm
people
sorry.
live there? How many
It's
people
a
live there?
it's a pretty small area. I don't know our exact population numbers, but it's a very small, tight knit,
Thousands?
everybody knows everyone type of community.
Thousands?
Yes.
But less than 10,000.
No, more than 10,000, I would say. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What's the opinion about Don and his wife in the neighborhood or in the area? What do people think about them?
People don't have all too many opinions of Candace prior to now. A lot of people do feel that they aren't giving as much information as they know, even if they're not involved. But prior to the case, some people knew Dawn as a hothead, just
Mhm.
somebody who would be a flip of a switch type of get into anger. So some people would state that they avoided him even prior to all of this going on. But there wasn't much about Candace. She kept to herself and was pretty mellow, it seemed, at least in the community.
Did Dawn and Candace get the boys back, or are they still in CPS custody?
So that's actually a big piece of it going on right now. They are still in CPS custody. Dawn's been going on YouTube and on their social media pages, posting about this and how he wishes that he could have contact with them. And he claims that CPS kidnapped the boys. Even though early on in the case, he said that he wanted them to take them because he felt it was unsafe. We don't know the reason they were taken, but it seems that there were reasons, because this much later into it, they're still in CPS custody. And if it goes any longer, they may lose their rights completely, and the boys may stay in custody and be adopted out that way.
Oh, wow. Did they ever interview the boys?
Yes, law enforcement has talked to them. I'm not sure. Nothing, of course, was said of what they knew or didn't know, especially with them being minors and it being an investigation on top of that, and them being in state custody. But they were spoken to, and I think they're still spoken to as this goes on, because if they did see anything that was, traumatizing on top of, losing their sister and being in foster care already, it will take time to work through with therapists and counselors and such to work through any kind of things that may be blocking that experience of that day.
Right. Maybe they found something out, or the boys said something that made law enforcement think they're better with CPS than at home.
Absolutely, there had to have been something, because, of course, the judge has to justify keeping the kids away from their biological parents. They can't just, say, well, for the heck of it, we're going to keep these kids out. Obviously, there's going to be there's justification, and for it to go this long, that justification has to be pretty big. I would say I agree with you that they found something that we don't know, but there's something that they found that they feel justifies keeping them away that long.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, yeah. I mean, if they said something like, oh, we saw what happened to our sister or something, I think the ball would be already rolling. So, they would have arrested them or whoever did this. So what I believe is they are still in CPS care because something happened to them, probably.
Yes, I think they could give less information on what happened to Summer, because I agree, if they said they saw it, it would be even if it wasn't solved yet, it'd be way moved on. It'd be a for sure a foul play case or whatever they witnessed. We saw her wander off. We saw foul play. They would know. So I think they gave more insight onto the way the home life was and what was done to all of them, possibly, or the conditions they lived in, things like that. I think they were able to give more insight into that, and that may have led to them being not only taken but kept in state care.
Hmm. Do the boys say, or do we know if the boys want to go home?
We don't. That is all. That has not been. That won't be known, or we don't know that.
Hmm. So Mercy Choke is saying they've had law enforcement called to their home for DV on several occasions, but Candace usually changes her mind, nails him out, and drops the charges. They both are drunks and use crystal meth. His ex says he traded. Yeah, but that could be, anger from his ex, probably.
Yeah, that's the thing, is some sources I'm sorry, but I would say
No,
some
go ahead.
sources you get, you have to look at their perspective on it. You get like us, who don't know any of the family, don't know anybody. We're just looking at it from the information we're given and our opinions and intuitions. But you get somebody like an ex, and I don't mean to discredit her necessarily, but she has a stake in the race for sure, being that she obviously is not with him for one reason or another.
Mhm. So what happened to his first child?
Um, we're not sure exactly what happened with his first child, but I know that there were issues with both him and Candace's first children. She lost custody to all of her kids prior to the ones she had with Dawn, and so it's been a whole. It seems that it's a repeat of that with their kids they had before. Now this happening again.
So there must be some sort of issue going on. I mean,
The,
even though it's the ex and you got to take everything with a grain of salt, maybe there's some truth to it.
oh, definitely, and I think that maybe she it says, like the comment said, where the ex said something about him trading. Maybe it wasn't to that extent, but maybe he is still a, neglectful parent, or they use drugs around the kids and the kids missed meals and the kids lived in filth. Things like that could be true as well, and not all the way to the extent of, even if they're not involved with Summer, I think it's fair to say that it looks like there are issues in their household, regardless of what happened that day.
Huh. So you said it's a fairly small community.
Yes,
Is it known who Dawn makes business with? like selling drugs or whatever? Are these people known to law enforcement?
People claim to say that he goes here for this or here for that. Law enforcement would likely know based on the people that are making these claims if those are, if there's any truth in them or not. Because of course there's a difference between what people will go on social media or YouTube and say versus what they'll tell law enforcement. So if there's any truth to the claims that people that actually know him or live near them are saying, then they've been verified by law enforcement. But it's hard to know what has been and what hasn't with how little we've been given by law enforcement overall.
Because
Talking about law enforcement.
Sorry, say again, Don.
Talking about law enforcement, Trevor, could you summarize in one word their performance?
In one word, I would say embarrassing.
That is a recurring theme. Normally, they should protect and serve, and we on YouTube should be out of job. But that didn't happen. Do you have any idea why this is the case in this county?
So I and others have looked into the sheriff there. So the Hawkins County is the county she went missing in. The lead investigative body is the Hawkins County Sheriff's Department. They also bring in help from TBI, which is our state department, and the FBI federally. But they hold the keys to the investigation since they're the local body. Recently, the sheriff's son was arrested or was charged with multiple sexual counts against children, against little girls in the community. He was given a 20-year sentence, and then it was reduced to 1 year. So it was not 19 of the 20 years were knocked off because he's the sheriff's son. And so I, immediately caught my eye and many others of, obviously that's because of who his dad is. And I started diving deeper into it and talking to people that former law enforcement there or no law enforcement there. And I found out that his son was also a big drug dealer in the area, and he told his investigators to never pursue charges against him, never to make an arrest, just, kind of probably, a little slap on the wrist, like, hey, don't be doing that. I don't want to see you doing that, those kind of things, but never pursued him. And it led to him being not in prison for that, or not in jail or anything for that. And now he was available to the community to, prey on children. So it just kind of goes to show that his dad has a lot of pull there and will make calls not only for his son but for others. There's a case where he was taken to court because a inmate in the jail that he runs was abused and wasn't allowed any medical treatment. She ended up having a heart attack and dying. So there are multiple cases of just incompetence at his level and clear corruption.
Who needs kidnappers when you have such a sheriff? Yeah. So, how much do you think that everything is politics involved?
Oh, definitely, and that's the thing is because I've spoken to high level officials about the corruption part of it and just saying, is there anything that can be done? Like, it's sad that regardless of how corrupt he is, that his actions could be withholding movement in an investigation about a missing little girl. Like, that should never be the case, and they want to look into it, but at the same time, there's so many politics in it because he has friends, he has people that he's connected with. Plus, if he's investigated and charged with anything, he'll pull down his detectives, and some will probably go down with him, some high level deputies and detectives, and any case that they investigated can be retried in court. And then you pull murders, you pull big drug cases, you pull so many different kind of cases out, and they all go back and be retried because it can be seen as tainted evidence if you have charges on these people. So then higher law enforcement has to be careful going after it because you may push forward an opening for Summer's case, but you also may push open multiple appeals and reinvestigations into so many other cases that are already sealed shut.
Right. So, would you personally go to the police to solve anything for you?
Not that department. I live one county over, and our sheriff's department is wonderful. I have a relationship with our sheriff and extend any kind of help I can give. if there was a case like Summers here or anything, I would just show my appreciation there and show that we could hopefully work together with him. And he's great. But then you get one county over into Hawkins where Summer disappeared from, and you just get this almost like unwillingness to do anything. I mean, I would try to call the investigator on her case, and he would interrupt me, hang up on me, wouldn't want to have any kind of conversation. It just doesn't seem like they want this to be like it hit its biggest peak on the news and it hit everybody's eyes, and they want it to just kind of get cold enough that they can, not necessarily stop working on it, but stop giving it the attention that we think it should have.
Oh my God, this is so. Yeah, we see corruption in a lot of cases involving children, don't we? I mean, this should be, even if my son is the sheriff and stuff like that, why are they being so corrupt? I mean, this is a little girl.
Absolutely. And it's like she doesn't have any connection to the sheriff. It's not like she, should be the one taking the fall for his own issues or his corruption or anything, whether he's, doing what he thinks is right or not. It doesn't matter. It's a shame that she's the one that now is possibly going to be without justice because of what he and others have done in that department and overall.
But when a child goes missing, isn't the FBI involved anyway? Don't they see? I just can't believe that they don't see the corruption and the connections he has.
They're involved. They came in from day one, but the thing is, they don't, unless there's a federal crime, they can't take over a case and won't. So They came in and did their initial work, but they can't do extra basically without being requested. If he calls them and says, I want you to come do this, we need your help in this. I mean, we see the Michael Vaughn case. They had an FBI agent basically just at their department. They requested his or her help so many times that they just left him there and let them have an FBI agent to work alongside them because it mattered more finding him than anything that the FBI agent was going to find. And see, they could do that here, but the sheriff doesn't request those kind of things, and it just leaves the FBI to not have much access to anything without investigating separately. They could investigate him. That would be something they could look into, but they can't help in Summers' case more than he asked them to.
Wow. So Candace, sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but don't think that the FBI is Virgin Mary too. They have their own rotten apples in there.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
Do you happen to know in detail, if possible, what did law enforcement do the first 3 hours when they were called?
Yes, so they called in immediately when they got the dispatch call because that was released, so people have been able to listen to that. Once they got the call in to Hawkins County from her father, they called in as many officers as they could, it sounded like, called in a detective. They immediately set up a command post at a nearby church and went up to the residence that Summer lived at. They called in the rescue agency. That seemed to be their main focus, is wandering off. And what I worry is because their search efforts were great. They brought in search agencies from multiple states. It was a huge, probably the biggest search effort I've ever seen. It was in great detail. They shoulder to shoulder, didn't miss a beat. But I think that maybe they didn't look enough into any other avenues, whether it be kidnap, anything, not just my theory, your theory, anybody's, but just overall not looking into anything else but the fact that she wandered off. And I think in that time frame, especially those first few hours, like you mentioned, something may have fallen through the cracks.
Now, I know that you might not know the answer to my next question, but do you happen to know if they considered the case a missing person, a kidnapped person, a murder, or whatever?
So they have not been able to determine a mode of investigation, I guess is what I would call it. So, and I've asked them, and people have over the months, and they still haven't said if they can rule anything out. So they said they're looking into foul play, they're looking into her wandering off, they're looking into a kidnapping, they're looking into all aspects. The one thing that was said was they have no sign of abduction. They didn't rule it out, but after the FBI card team and the TBI and everybody came in and looked at it, they see no sign that she was abducted. That's the one thing they have stated.
But what I'm asking you, what would you expect to find as signs of abduction of a 5-year-old girl? Give me an example, please.
I'm not sure what they would say they would find. I'm not sure what exactly the FBI card team, their processes they go through, but that is what they determined. That could have also been from the fact that it's such a hard point for her to be abducted from. Their house is up on a hill. It's not visible to the road that they live on, let alone the main road that people drive by on. So you would have to know that family and know their patterns to even consider going up there and taking her. It's not a place where you can see anybody for opportunity type. We see a lot of kidnappings where it's a crime of opportunity. You see a kid, you see nobody around, and you grab them. But that's just not could have been the case here. She could have been taken, I guess, by someone who knows them. But as far as a stranger abduction, it just seems unlikely to me. And of course, that's what they've ruled so far.
Do they have any sort of surveillance footage, road cameras, anything from
It
that day?
doesn't seem like it. Where it's such a rural area out here, the most people have is deer cameras and trail cameras in the back of their properties, but those mostly only face the mountains and the where the animals run, and not towards the road where we would hopefully see anything.
Wow.
How would you classify the, let's say, the economic level of that family?
I would say that they're low level income. I wouldn't know if I would go into how low. I don't know. The mother apparently has government assistance, and he was he did drywall, so those kind of jobs. He went to job sites, and he's worked in that for years, and seems to kind of work for a company, but runs his own. Like, he's the one that goes out to the job sites and does a lot of stuff. So I think he at least decently benefits from that.
What job sites did he went to after Summer was missing?
So that day he was out at a job site in a subdivision, a little ways away from where the county they live in. And it was said that for a while, at least, he was the only one there. And that's where the question is raised of if he left or not during the day, if he came home, because it's not like a office job where 10 people would be able to say, Trevor was here all day or Trevor was not here all day. Trevor left, Trevor didn't show up. Those job sites where it's just you're the only one out there, it's hard to always be able to nail that down if somebody was there, if they weren't, as far as just off alibis of witnesses or people there at least.
So you're saying that the parents have no alibi?
They claim that they have an alibi, but they have not been ruled out by law enforcement. So it doesn't seem that those alibis have been confirmed by police.
Yeah, at least they're open to any possibility.
Yes, definitely.
Wow. Wow, I don't even know what to say. I mean, corruption, we see that in many, many cases. Do you think, what's your next move? What's your next plan on this case, Trevor?
Right now, I'm still trying to, number one, keep her name out there, her face, her flyer, her story. But as far as trying to get movement in the investigation, I'm just continuing to follow up with the Department of Justice and the FBI, who I initially spoke to about this, and trying to get them to hopefully at least look into Sheriff Lawson. And maybe they'll find out that the corruption that we know of is as far as it goes, but you worry that the stuff that's known publicly is only scratching the surface of what goes on deep down and how deep it goes.
Did they ever draft like a real timeline?
So law enforcement has said that she was, of course, the call came in about 6:30 p.m. that night, but the parents Candace has been the one to give her timeline of the day, but it is yet to be corroborated by law enforcement. They still haven't been able to say if that timeline is the case or not.
phone pings in this case and the time frame on who called who was strange in law enforcement and DNC's phones. Did they ever take in their phones?
Yes, they did. Early on, they took both of their phones.
But there's nothing publicly available who they called or text messages or anything like that.
Right. They took those and I'm sure cloned or downloaded, whatever their process was, but we don't know anything that was on them.
Oh, okay, maybe they found something on them then. They are poverty level financially. Their property is a dump, trash, abandoned vehicles, dangerous equipment all over the place, etc. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's rough, and I think some of that also comes from their lack of priorities. I wouldn't say that they have much money, and I wouldn't try to frame them or paint them in a picture because of that. But you also get to a level of, if your house, if the outside just looks like a dump, which theirs did for a long time, it is almost comes down to what are your priorities? Is it your drugs and the kind of things that you're into, or is it, a safe and livable home for your children?
For your
I
children,
mean,
right.
not having the nicest new everything for your kids and
Yeah.
and at least keeping your place clean enough that it's safe are two different things.
Exactly. Oh my
Yet
God.
there are people that sell their children.
Hmm.
It's sad but true.
Yep.
Oh wow.
So
Well,
any meaningful help? Did you get any meaningful help for any institution that you consulted with?
I've talked to the TBI, our state agency, keeps a good relationship with me. They will answer any questions that they can that I have, any kind of conversation that they can have with me. They'll always answer any kind of inquiries. I did receive feedback from the Department of Justice that they received what I had sent and they were going to refer it to a federal law enforcement agency, which would be the FBI, because of course it would be investigated first. And if anything was found, it could be turned over for an investigation from the legal side on the Department of Justice to a prosecutor.
does the FBI know about the sheriff's son?
Yes, more recently I did call and file a report with them, just stating what we knew, that he, the issues in his son's sentencing and how most people here believe that it was solely because of who his dad is and how it was definitely a sign of, abuse of power, corruption, whatever you want to use there. So they have a report down for it, and it's what they've done with it. I'm not sure, but I know it's filed down. I gave them that.
Roger is saying, ask Trevor about the act he is trying to get done.
So separately from Summer's case, I have a foundation in honor of my classmate and her mom who were killed in a domestic violence incident when I was in high school. And so we push for domestic violence and child abuse awareness, advocacy, and through legislation a lot of times. So I'm working on a bill right now with our state government to get a law passed to help with domestic violence.
That's awesome. Great. Good
Thank
job. So do you have anything like a GoFundMe donation site, anything that takes you, within this investigation, or a website or anything you want to share on here?
I don't take in anything. I try just not to even know if one way or not it could be used for good or not. I try to avoid the financial parts just because it could, you get people then that question and look into it. And I just wouldn't even want to open that door. So I have been lucky enough to be able to do things I've done on my own accord and
Oh, wow.
try to
Great.
that. So as much as I can.
Wow. Thank you so much. I mean, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I turned 21 in December.
There you go, guys. 21 years old and so invested in this missing case. It's and what you did, like, oh, it's just amazing. Congratulations on that. And if you ever need help, like if you want me to share something, or if we we could do, you know, I'm a friend of timelines, because when, even with the Summer Wells case, if we compare the timeline Candace gives and the police has, actually, you see, you know, I'm a visualize kind of type, and you see a pattern in that, or you see what's missing, you know, when you do timelines. I love timelines. So if you're interested in drafting one, I would be totally up for it.
Absolutely. I've done a lot in terms of getting the timeline down and just studying what each person has said, and I would definitely be able to put that together and would love to share that.
Oh, absolutely. All right, you guys, if you have any
Tanya,
more questions.
I have one last question for Trevor.
Okay.
Sorry, it is a
No
more
problem.
personal one. Trevor, are you a religious person?
Yes.
I wish you all the best. You are a brave young man, and if more of you would be in the United States, things would be better. I advise you to stay as you are, and maybe, who knows, go into politics for the good ones, because America needs people like you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And honestly, whatever I've considered that, and just whatever I can do in a career to make an impact, you know, further the good in things, and push better and push change and hopefully make an impact is what I want to do.
Go for it.
Before we end this, I want to read you guys something Trevor said, and that kind of moved me a little bit. He said, "I never interacted with Summer, but between seeing social media posts and hearing from those that did interact with her, I know she was a happy, bubbly, loving girl that often carried a smile on her face and was often excited by things like her church class or Paw Patrol." And I found that so nice of you to say that, because there you can see that you really, even though you're a stranger to this family and a stranger to Summer, it's so much love you give that little girl, you know, much more love than her parents probably ever gave her. And, you know, just the fact that, you know, she likes Paw Patrol, and that you basically studied the behavior and everything involving this little girl is just really amazing. And I want to thank you for that. And I just can say I agree totally with Dawn. The world needs more people like you, definitely.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's sad that it comes to people like us to have to provide that voice, but I feel it's really important
Yeah,
that if that voice is taken from a child, that somebody that we need to step up and give it to them, because they deserved to have that love and that voice from day one.
absolutely.
You must take your country back from those in power now.
Yes.
We too. We too. We do too. Everyone does.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay, Trevor, I hope I will have you very, very soon back on here again.
I would love to.
Was nice talking to you. My audience enjoyed it. And thank you for your time, and take care.
Absolutely. I appreciate it and look forward to next time.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, you guys, that was Trevor, an amazing young man. Really, 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 I don't even know what to say. I'm lost for words. It's, you know, advocate for not only Summer, but what he did with only 21 years old. I mean, this is amazing, and we should support people like that and support each other anyways. All right, you guys, I hope that little mixed up live stream was to your something's wrong here, to your liking. Unfortunately, we lost Roger, but we will be back on soon. So anyways, going forward, I had a little social media break and YouTube break and whatnot. I was really stressed out with work. That's why I didn't go live. But I really, really enjoyed this today. Yeah, Roger, you're in chat, but you're not on my panel anymore. But that's okay. Thank you, Roger, for bringing me this amazing guy, Trevor, and also Jonathan. Both of them are very, very insightful, very good information. And I really, really hope that we can do more with them too. And yeah, now I gotta catch up on every little detail and timelines and all that stuff. Mercy Choke, you will be seeing me next week, Saturday. I was planning on going live tomorrow as well, but my work colleagues invited me to the Chinese buffet, so I couldn't say no. Yeah, it's just because I didn't have time off in the past 4 weeks. So, and they, yeah, invited me. Anyways, we're gonna see each other next week, Saturday. And we're doing what's again for a change. And we're gonna be talking about the K9 unit. Also on Monday, I will be having an appointment with my local law enforcement's K9 unit. And I want to prepare some questions tomorrow, what I'm going to ask this guy. And I'm sure Dawn will be adding some more questions to the list once this live stream is over. So I will be going there on Monday so I can report to you guys on Saturday. What is the what's you speak of? Yeah. The what's. So K9 unit will be the topic next week, Sunday. All right, you guys. What's, yeah. What an unusual topic for me, the what's case. Yeah, there's still some stuff I want to show and still some stuff I want to talk about. Anyways, enjoy the rest of your weekend, you guys. Stay safe, stay true to yourself, stay out of trouble, and I see you next week, Saturday. Goodbye. Have a good night.